much for having me on. I have to say that, so I used, obviously, the first, the front cover is the one that Helen Kind designed, and I absolutely love her doodles. So she's actually used a lot of the icons, and when you were going through those slides just there, I don't know if any of you noticed any of the icons that were in them. There was like a little hand with a little love heart on it, which I'll show you how to draw later. There was a little, what do you call them? The things you use to make your your voice louder.
Megaphone.
That's megaphone. Megaphone. There was a megaphone as well, which is quite good for talking about like action and using your voice, etc. The hand icon's quite good for support. But yeah, basically, these icons and a lot of my drawings, I only recently started drawing again. I kind of stopped drawing. Like probably a lot of people. I drew quite a lot when I was a kid. I drew quite a lot at high school, and then I kind of stopped drawing. And I was drawing in the classroom when I first started teaching, about 2007-ish. And I stopped drawing basically when Google Images came along. I don't know if anyone else has a similar story, but then a graphic facilitator came to my classroom, and I was just amazed at how simple her drawings were. So I went and did a graphic facilitation course, and it's just completely transformed the way I teach, especially for lower levels. My whiteboards are now full of words and pictures, which my students have told me themselves are so supportive, and they understand a lot of my lessons very well because I've got all these little doodles, and they don't take long to do. So I'm going to show you some activities today for the classroom. You don't need to be an artist. I am not an artist. My doodles are communication. They're not art. They are not to intimidate anybody. They're a bit of fun. They're creative, and they stem, actually, graphic facilitation started off in design industries such as engineering, for example. So even this computer that you're on at the moment was designed by somebody and started out as a doodle. So it's for adults and for everyone, and it changes the world. And we can use it to change the world in a green way as well. So throughout the session, I will be using annotation tools. Is everyone familiar with annotation tools? I'd like you to play around first, just so that I know that you can use them. So you'll see this on the top of the screen. You will see you are viewing Emily Bryson's screen. Why is that not spotlighting? Wrong. Yeah. So please go to Emily Bryson's screen and then annotate, and then make some sort of mark on this screen. If you are on a tablet or a mobile phone, you'll just see this little icon, and you'll get a pen. You won't get all these tools, but you will have the joy of actually having a touch screen. So in many ways, it's better. Yeah, use stamps, play around with the drawings. You can add text as well. Okay, it looks like you've got it. Okay, so just going to clear the annotation there, clear all drawings. Okay, my first activity, this is what in the graphic facilitation world we call a container. And a container is basically just a big icon or a big doodle that's drawn on a whiteboard or a flip chart as big as you can. And it means that instead of writing, for example, environment on the whiteboard and asking students to tell you all the words that they know about the environment, you can kind of activate their schemata a little bit more and activate their creativity a little bit more and their imagination, and inspire them a little bit by drawing something related to the environment. So I'd like you to write all the words that you know related to environment here by using the annotation tools. And it can be any word at all related to the environment in any way. So like climate change, solar, climate, nature, yeah, greenwashing, etc. So what I like about this activity, or this kind of style of activity, is that you can use it as zero preparation. You don't need to prepare anything. You can pretty much do it for any theme at all. So it could be a leaf to talk about environment. It could be a burger to talk about vegetarian burgers and food, for example. It could be a person or a group of people to talk about family. You can use it for lots of different ways, lots of different topics. And then once you've got all these words on the whiteboard, you can get students to make questions with them. You can get them to make sentences with them. You could ask them to write a story with them. You could get them to write a role play with them, or just discuss them and explain them to each other. If anyone has any ideas of how you would expand on this activity, can you please write them in the chat? I'm always interested to hear how you would expand on it. So extension tasks, share your ideas, or if you've done anything similar, just add them in the chat at any point, please. Feel free to add anything at any time. Okay. So yeah, that's the container activity that I like to do. And so you can do this as a kind of almost dogme idea. Yeah, word clouds in a container, that's a nice idea. You can do it as a kind of dogme activity to start off the lesson. Or you can also be a little bit more, a little bit more prepared. So you can, if you want to, these all originated, you'll see in the background my flip chart. But these all started off life, and actually I have them rolled up somewhere as a flip chart. And the beauty of having them as a flip chart is that they make things a bit more tactile in the classroom. So you can move it around the classroom and use it in a similar way. So students are, for example, brainstorming the pros and cons of energy sources. They're brainstorming ways to reduce plastic waste. They're talking about ways to save electricity. You can do this as a, what do you call it? Paper carousel. So, for example, you've got 3 tables, 3 big bits of flip chart paper. You put 1 bit of paper on every table, and then the students can add their ideas either on post-it notes or adding their own doodles, adding their own notes, and then you pass it to the next table who adds their information and discusses it and talks about it, adds it, improves on it, and then they pass that to the next table, for example. Or you can have it hanging at different sections of the wall where students can go over and actually walk around and add their ideas and discuss as they're doing that. So I'd just like you to add, using the annotation tools, think of the pros and cons of, for example, nuclear energy. So if you can write here, because you can use, again, they're very adaptable. So you could actually add like a little line down the middle. Let me just draw a line. You could add a line down the middle here if you wanted to and have pros and cons, or you could keep it the way it is. You could also have different, what other discussions could you have with this particular template? This is what we call a visual template. So a visual template is basically a large sheet of paper, or it could be on your whiteboard, where students add their ideas and interact with it. Yeah, fossil light, waste. Yeah, any pros and cons for the other energy sources? And then you can get language out of it, like, for example, one disadvantage is, one negative issue, one negative aspect of solar is, for example, in Scotland, there's not much sun. Okay. Oh, it kills birds. Of course, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. The wildlife impact of tidal, yeah. There doesn't seem to be one entirely perfect solution, does there? Yes, exactly, Christy. So you just said you could do this collaboratively via Google Classrooms. Exactly. So you can do this on big sheets of paper in class physically. You could do it with A4 sheets of paper in class physically. You can do it on your whiteboard. You can do it, I like to use Jamboard and then have students move the post-it notes around. There's also, I'm going to put in the chat, Mural and Miro are both interactive whiteboards. Zoom whiteboard as well, obviously you can use that too. So lots of different ways of doing things. Okay, so obviously, so we've got these ideas now. What do we do as the extension tasks? Any ideas what you could do as extension tasks for, you've brainstormed the ideas using these big sheets of paper, either in small groups or as individuals. Yeah, have a debate. Debates are a great way of getting students talking. Create a preferred mix for a nation. Oh, you might need to explain that one, Mike. Oh, preferred energy mix. Yes, good idea. Yes. Find solutions. Yeah. So yeah, it's great for critical thinking and adding a bit of creativity and dissecting different parts of the language. Exactly. So think of phrases that they've used naturally, or think of words that they might use. What kind of language would you maybe use for advantages and disadvantages, for example? Or for energy sources in general. Yeah, researching some of these. So yeah, lots of different ways that you can use it. Reducing plastic waste is use it in a similar way, really. So brainstorm ideas, how do you reduce plastic waste? And then you can do all the extension tasks that we discussed, role plays, stories, reducing plastic waste, pros and cons of plastic, for example, pros and cons, the difficulties and the challenges of plastic. Yeah. And yeah, comparatives, comparing these energy sources. It's a very natural way of getting comparatives in there and superlatives in there. Has anybody got a preference? What do you think the best energy source is from a green perspective? Anybody got thoughts on that? Is there a best? Is there such a thing? Could be a good discussion topic in general. Talking about that. Solar, okay. And why do you think solar is the best energy source, Chris?
Because I think it's has great application in the global south, where they have sun, basically, and even in Scotland it works, to reasonably well. So yeah.
Okay. Good.
And there's no risk attached to it.
No risk. Okay. Cool. Okay, so you get the idea. So basically, and you can use these flip charts again and again. If you use them with post-it notes, you can use them again and again. If you digitize them, so there's an app called Cam Scanner. I'm just going to put that in the chat. Cam Scanner, basically that's the app that I use. So if I draw something on paper, I'll use Cam Scanner to scan it. And then I use the magic color function. I'll put that in the chat too. And then that kind of changes it to that like really bright, kind of almost cartoony look to it. But yeah, if you want to create images to last forever, you can also use things like digital tablets, etc. as well. So I'm just going to switch over now to drawing some icons, because that's what you came for. And I have in the past ended up talking so long that we don't get enough time to draw. So I'm just going to stop sharing for now and move over to my visualizer. Okay, and then I'm going to pin, or is it pin or spotlight for everyone? Can everyone see that okay? You can see my cheat knots at the corner there to remind myself. Okay, so also one thing to say is I quite like using these Pilot friction pens, partly because they're great because you can erase them. but also because this one won't work. Oh yeah, so you can unscrew them and get a new cartridge. And yes, the new cartridge is plastic, but I feel like it uses slightly less plastic by reusing the container around it at least. So they're pretty, I think in terms of green pens, they're not too bad. Okay, so first, does everybody have a pen and paper at the ready? So I'll start with the megaphone, because the megaphone's a good way of talking about ways to get students talking and about climate action and having their voice heard and to be a global citizen. And so we start with a rectangle. And often when I'm drawing, I start with, so the drawing alphabet, for anybody that doesn't believe that they can draw, the drawing alphabet is basically a rectangle, a circle, a squiggly line, a couple of lines, and a triangle. And throughout, as I'm drawing, you will see various different shapes. So does anybody here believe that they can't draw?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. Hopefully by the end of this session, you will believe that you can draw, because this is all you need. Okay. So to do a megaphone, thank you, Mike, for reminding me what that word is. Start with a rectangle and then do a smaller rectangle underneath. And then just a little bit under and a little bit above the end, you can kind of go up. And then almost a triangle. And that's your megaphone. And then you can add some sound waves to show voice. Okay, from the energy sources one, if you're wanting to draw a factory, you start with part of a rectangle. And then you do a couple of triangles. And then you can continue to make a full rectangle. And if you want to, you can add some smoke coming out of the factory. If you wanted to make it a nuclear power plant factory, then you can add a circle or a kind of oval, really. Another oval, and then that's your nuclear symbol. If anybody wants me to repeat any of these, you can just ask me, or you can obviously watch the recording, which will be uploaded to YouTube or to your website, will it?
To our website, yeah.
The website, okay. Okay, so nuclear energy, and then for wind energy, I usually start with a circle, and then the tall, seem to have lost all my words today. The base of the wind farm, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 blades. Okay, and these are actually, they're kind of different sizes. They're not perfect, but it's okay because, you know, we're teachers and we're drawing quickly on a whiteboard or drawing quickly here. So don't worry about perfection. It's about getting the idea across. For solar, I would do a rectangle, but with at a jaunty angle. And then a little line to show the stand for it. And then you can just really quickly add some kind of crisscrosses. And then hopefully you've left some space for a little sun at the side to show that the solar is together. And then if you're talking about the planet in general, and actually this is one that Helen has on the very front cover of for the advert for this session, is the world map. And the world map, you don't actually need to make it look too much like a world. You don't need to be geographically correct. So I tend to put the poles in and then do some little squiggly bits for land, and that's about all you need to kind of demonstrate that it's the world. The other one that's quite good is the light bulb, and the beauty of the light bulb is that, so yeah, you got a U shape, and then an O, and then an M, and then a Z, and then you can add the little lines for lighting up. And in a green context, that could be saving energy or energy in general, but you could also use it for creativity, critical thinking, imagination, ideas. And if you were to do it as a container, you could have it on a flip chart or on your whiteboard and just kind of miss out the bit in the middle so that there's lots of space for people to put their post-it notes on, for example, for adding all their ideas. The recycling, I tend to draw as much of a triangle as I can, and then go back and add the points of the arrow. And what else? Oh, energy saving light bulb. In fact, if you wanted an energy saving light bulb, it's ovals. And then another little U shape at the top. You could have more ovals. You don't need to have just 3. Maybe add another one. Okay. Anybody? Oh, one last thing. Or does anybody have anything particular they'd like me to draw? It's always a bit dangerous to ask this because it depends if it's in my visual vocabulary or not. But actually what I like is the Helen's little leaf that she has for green action ELT. So if you wanted to draw green action ELT, you could draw like this. So a line, and then a leaf, and then you've got 3 little lines on either side. And you've got green action. Anybody want me to draw anything in particular? What else did I draw? There's like the bicycle can be quite tricky, but I do like it from a travel perspective, and also for any of you that know me, you'll know that I love cycling. So I put 2 circles, and then a triangle in the middle. And then the trick is to make sure that you start with the middle of the wheel, and then just connect the triangle from the middle of the wheel. And again, start with the middle of the wheel for your forks and go round. I quite like having dropped handlebars, and then add on the saddle. And then you've got your green travel. So yeah, you can use those in class to illustrate different vocabulary, or draw them really big to have a container to get students thinking, or ideas, or if you're creating your own graphic organizer, it can be really good, or even creating your own mind map with, instead of having just a circle, you could have, for example, a light bulb or a leaf as the middle part of the light bulb, as the middle part of the mind map. Okay.
Emily, I've got one. I have
Oh,
to.
yeah.
It's not.
I'll go back to.
Sorry, it's not particularly green focused, but one I always have problems with when I'm teaching is drawing the UK. It always comes out looking a little bit rude.
Oh yeah. I'm not sure I could help there actually, because I don't think I've ever tried to draw the UK.
No, okay.
You could actually, what you could do is, if I hang on, I'm going to cheat a little bit and go to noun. No, I'm going to go to icon UK.
That's a good idea.
Because it's much easier to draw an icon than it is. It's much easier to copy an icon than it is to copy like a clip art, for example.
Okay, that's
yeah. So that's a top tip for drawing, because basically with graphic facilitation, the visual vocabulary is based around icons. So if you go back to the presentation that Mike had at the beginning, you will see all these icons. And if you look even at your Zoom screen right now, you've got, like, for example, the video. It's basically just a rectangle with a little triangle on it. And then the microphone is like this. But yeah, if you're looking for ideas and you're a bit stuck, you can go to icon. But yeah, it doesn't make it any easier for UK, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
I would maybe go for, I don't know how I would draw UK.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Emily, for the natural.
Not part of my visual vocabulary, I'm afraid, but I'll try to make it that. Yeah, Mike?
For the natural environment, so things like forestry, fish and animals and wildlife, are there any easy wins there?
Yes. So for fish,
I think I could manage a fish actually, now that I think about it.
Okay, yeah, fish is pretty simple. Fish is like that. So actually, when I did my graphic facilitation training, my friend said to me, so basically you spent a lot of money learning how to draw like a child. It's like, yes, that's exactly what I've done. But you know what? It makes me much more communicative and it makes my students understand me more. So I'm happy with that. It also makes me be a bit more creative. So yeah, so fish. And for like chicken, I found a really cute way to draw a chicken or a bird, and it's basically a squiggle, and then you add the beak, and then you add the eye, and then you add the legs. So that's quite a cute way. And actually what's quite nice is to give students little squiggles or get them to make their own squiggles and then get them to turn it into something. And then they have to explain what it is that they've turned this random squiggle into. What else? Things like, yeah, like sheep. Sheep's quite simple because it's a cloud. And I have to say that I'm a fan of the four-legged, of having four little legs here, for example. For cow, somebody told me that start with the ears because then you get everything in perspective. For animals, I quite like just kind of comedy legs in a way. Because again, it's just about getting the point across. Other animals for, yeah, for wildlife, or yeah, trees, just a line. Or the other way that I quite like to draw a tree is like that, like a Christmas tree is quite nice. Okay.
Emily, could I ask, do you have an icon for like climate or climate change, something like that?
Oh, I'm gonna
That's a
go
tough
to
one.
Google
That's a common one. Sorry.
I am Googling climate change icon
Okay.
right now. I'm not gonna lie.
No, no worries.
Oh, okay. So it's got like so the icon, according to Google Images, is like a melting earth, which is a bit tricky, but so we can do a bit of the earth.
Okay.
One thing actually you could do for climate change is just add like an arrow. Like you could add an arrow to this one.
Oh, okay.
Because yeah, arrows are quite good ways of just showing change in general. Or I'm out of space, or I'll turn this into, you could have yeah, you could have that as being climate change as well, and just turn that into the earth kind of thing.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, that would maybe be the easiest way.
Heat coming off the earth.
Yeah.
Heat waves.
Has anybody looked at Mumbai beach cleanup before? The before and after pictures. So there's this amazing story about a guy who lived very near Mumbai beach, and it was upsetting him so much that Mumbai beach used to look like this. It used to be, I think it was 1.5 meters deep in rubbish. Can you see my screen right now? That has Mumbai beach, yeah. And then he basically started picking up litter himself one day, And then other people started following him and copy and doing the same thing and helping him. And then they got support to bring in diggers, etc., to help clean it. And now there are turtles on Mumbai Beach. It's completely transformed it. It's absolutely beautiful. So what a difference it's made. And that's just one person changing the world in a small way by picking up litter. But that inspired me to write this particular spread for National Geographic Learning's Voices series. And it's based on an infographic around all the plastic that doesn't get recycled in the world. So it starts off with the infographic, and then there's a listening exercise where they listen to somebody talking about the Mumbai beach clean. And then it goes on to talking about used to and would. But it's quite shocking, all the information here, like 24.2 billion pairs of shoes worldwide. And actually, it's one of the things that my friends laugh at me for, is that my shoes are quite often needing the bin. And yeah, I wear them really, really until they need to be chucked out. And it's partly just guilt from climate change and from knowing that they were made by probably a small child in a factory and then taken over and yeah, will end up in landfill somewhere. So I tend to wear them a lot. But yeah, it's quite an interesting lesson inspired by Mumbai Beach. And when I was a few weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, I spoke to Harry Waters, and we were talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, and we actually drew the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you would like to draw the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a video on YouTube of Harry Waters and I drawing them. I don't have time today, but if you would like to learn, they basically drew each of these icons, which was quite fun. But the Sustainable Development Goals are obviously very important, and they tie in very well with Green Matters. There's a lot of focus on them. Voices Project has two projects to accompany the series that are all based on the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is one of the ones that I wrote, which is based on a graphic organizer. So obviously I like to organize things in a graphic way. So students do a litter pick, similar to the one on Mumbai Beach, but probably not to the same scale. And then they reflect on how they felt before, during and after. They think about how their behaviour might be in the past and how it maybe will be in the future. They maybe write some statements like, in the future, I will pick up more litter. In the future, I won't drop litter, for example. And then maybe a before photo and an after photo of the area that they collected all their rubbish, for example. So if you want to watch that, if you want to watch me doodling Sustainable Development Goals, then you can go to my YouTube channel at Emily Bryson ELT. Oh, I didn't have that. I left the introduction slide out here. Okay, so a while ago, Catherine Billsborough and Kerry Jones started the hashtag ELT Can Do Eco, and it was based around the can do statements. So they wanted to make can do statements for ecoliteracy. So for example, I can understand and explain climate change. I can communicate different ways. I can help the environment, for example. And so I created this little hand-drawn infographic that I used in class. I also wanted to do it with my students, and I find that I teach ESOL literacy learners, which are very low level, A0, learning how to read and write for the first time, possibly even in their first language. And I wanted to find a way to communicate the climate emergency with them and to discuss it in class. But I was finding that it was too difficult I felt all the published resources are are not that low, but communicating with pictures makes it much simpler. It's also great for all levels. So I actually, although I use this for my beginner class, I've also used it in my intermediate classes as well. because it's just so adaptable. So it's just one image, and because the image has no pictures on it, you can use it any way you want. So if you've got any ideas of how you would use this, please write them in the chat. I'll just quickly fly through how I would use them because I'm aware of the time. So problems with climate, or the environmental problems, and then maybe a few ideas for solutions. And this is who was asking about climate change and climate global warming, etc. This is quite a good way of drawing that. But yeah, you kind of need a yellow pen and a red pen, which isn't exactly helpful if you've only got a black pen in class on a whiteboard. But yeah, so problems and solutions. And then in class, I get students to use in their own words, how would they describe this? And actually, so although here, for example, too many people, there's not that the problem that the world doesn't really have a problem with too many people. It's the usage that each person has. But I think for basically explaining it to students, and for students and explaining it to me in the language that they knew, these were the words that we used. So it's not entirely, I suppose, when you simplify things down to beginner level, sometimes you can lose a little bit of the background in a way, can't you? But yeah, things like, so solutions, problems, solutions. So discuss them with your learners. And then what is it? It is a tin, it is a bottle, so you get a bit of grammar in there. It is food waste. And then they are bones, they are boxes. So you're talking about all the different things that they throw in the bin. And then I can consider different things to do with the waste. And I can decide what household waste can and can't be recycled. So for example, this apple core. So if you don't have it in presentation mode, you have the beauty of being able to move this around. So the apple core, where would it go? Food, clothes, glass, which bin would it go in? Feel free to turn your mic on and shout out, or just write it in the chat.
Food.
Food, exactly. Okay, tin.
Metal.
Metal, yeah. So you get the idea. And then here are the answers. I can identify how to recycle common household items, and then they can talk about it. They can talk about how to recycle things in their area, what color the bins are, because they can be different, etc. Okay. And lastly, I just want to say that I cycle to Harrogate partly to reduce my emissions, partly to raise money for the Hands Up project. The Hands Up project provides education for learners in Palestine, and they do some absolutely amazing work. I think in the chat, I keep meaning to close it off because I cycled to TEFL, and that was about a month ago now. Keep meaning to close it off. I managed to make it to £2,000 raised plus about £400 of gift aid. So absolutely delighted. Thank you for donating. But if you would like to, I'm going to maybe close it off on Sunday if there's still a little bit of time if you're interested in donating. If you'd like to access the Green ELT lesson plan, it's on my website under freebies. I've also got an active meditation if you're interested in well-being for your students and for yourself. I'm not very good at not thinking, so I like to draw my meditations. This is basically an active drawing meditation. So you're basically drawing a body scan. Stan's Lunch is an adult ESOL phonics lesson where I do a visual storytelling session. So I basically draw out a little story involving TIP, PIT and F words. I've got a guide to graphic facilitation for English language teachers and a guide for sketchnoting as well. And they're all available at my website under freebies. And I've got courses as well if you want more. So I've just released the third module, which is the sketchnoting module to accompany the graphic facilitation and the visual vocabulary one. And yeah, thank you very much for your time and for coming and for drawing.